where were you 6 months ago? Professionally, personally, what were some of the things some of the biggest challenges you were dealing with, both internally, externally, and what were you really struggling with at that point in time?
I think the word that comes to mind is drowning. I think I felt I was drowning personally and professionally, even though from the outside, I looked like I had it together. I was really, really falling apart as a mom, as a business owner, as a new leader in a position. So that's really where I was, 6 months ago.
There are times in my life I can relate to that. I know that there are, individuals who can relate to feeling that same way, where it's like everybody else thinks I got this thing figured out, but we're dealing with and we're wrestling with anxiety. We're wrestling with, like you said, this feeling like this never-ending list of things that need to get done. And so not only do you, run your own business, on top of that, you'd accepted some additional responsibilities. Really, almost an entirely full-time role.
Right.
As a leader. And
Right.
that I can only imagine that knowing that you're physically there at Christians' baseball practices or games, or you're physically there at home, but never feeling like you're actually physically, mentally, and emotionally connected to in there, that had to have been building up a sense of guilt, sense of weight on your shoulders. That there's no peace at home, because when you're at home, you're thinking about work and stressed about work. And when you're at work, you're feeling guilty about how you should have been more present last night, and you should have been checking those emails, and you shouldn't have been doing this other tasks and responding to texts. And so I think drowning is a good way of saying it. I'm drowning, but it feels like sometimes it can just feel like there's no way out. There's no way to get out from where we are. So fast forward the clock a little bit. Where are you today? And I know that we're all in process, like none of us have arrived, but I think it's valuable to recognize, like, what have been some of the changes you've experienced professionally, personally? How would you describe what has changed and what's different? And what have been the impact of those changes?
I think my confidence really needed to change, and it's almost hard to admit that. And my confidence was really waning, and it's something I needed to focus on something other than my abilities and kind of what other people thought of me, and that just was really weighing on me big time. I really needed to find security in what I did for the day, that it was kind of good enough. And to also be able to put it away when the time came to do so. It took some time to follow my calendar in that, because creating kind of a morning and an evening routine was really something that I did with your help, and looking at that, but also not just creating a morning routine where you put it on your calendar. It's interesting because I come across a lot of people's calendars in this role, and I see where people say, shut it off, turn work off. And then they're still sending emails at 8:00 at night. So they're really not adhering to what they're saying. So I really think that was one of the biggest changes that I made, was committing to say, if I'm done for the day, that what I did was enough. And now it's kind of become second nature for me. I know I still have some reminders that you send or that are put on my computer that I need to step away. And, I just need to be present with my family. And that helps me recharge for the next day. I've been so much more productive by putting those blocks in place and following them. I think that's the biggest part. We can all put blocks in our life telling us to shut it off, but if we're not adhering to it, then it's not doing anything. So that's really what I did to kind of begin this journey.
But like you said, the bottom line is, am I actually going to follow it? So I'm really curious about, for you, what were some of the keys for you that actually caused you to follow through? Like, if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, yeah, I get it. Like, I understand how important a morning routine is, and I understand how important it is to have a time that I'm shutting it down. How do I do that though, Kaylie? What worked for you? What was the key that unlocked that and made that actually happen for you?
I think you helped me see that I really wasn't working as productively as I could be. And I was in a place where just something had to change. And again, like I said, I saw people's calendars and, they would not shut it off. And I look back, I mean, I was that person for, I think, 20 years. I look back and I realized that I had said I would do this, but I never did. So really what I did is I began my day really getting outside and pointing my mind to what was the most important for me that day, not tasks I need to do or administrative things I needed to do. You really helped me open up trying to figure out, okay, what is the purpose for today? What's the outcome? What would I like to see for that day? And really, how am I standing in that in the morning so I can be the best version of myself for my team? And so that really helped, getting outside, focusing on really what the outcome was. And my outcome was really just being really present for my team and present for the people that I was going to, encounter that day. And that really, has made me a better leader. Also, I just, not only starting in the morning, but also I would shut off email because I have a tendency to kind of just find the fires. And I needed to remember that no email is such an emergency than kind of the time that I need to recharge. So where I typically would go to my email and check everything in the morning, I really centered myself outside, walking my dog, really just figuring out what my purpose was for that day. And then I could jump into the emails, but kind of the same thing at night. It's, there's not an email where it's so important that it can't wait until the next day. And so I needed to make sure that I put those blocks in. And I did that by just reminding myself that the reason my stress was going away and it wasn't as strong as it was is because I was doing all of these things and I didn't want to feel that constant chaotic feeling again. So yeah, that's what I did.
When we're in those moments where it feels like life is just a tornado or a constant hurricane, and like we're just drowning, and there's so much to do. And even though you're working all the time, you're still never getting everything done. Right. So it's like
Right.
So the solution we're putting in place, which is put more hours in, wake up earlier, go to bed later, put more time in. Ironically, it's never done. The list never gets done. When we find ourselves in a position where we're in that spot where all this like chaos is going on, it can feel like we don't have control over it and that it's happening to us. Like the demands of work and the responsibilities of the team and this big project that we have to get done, like I can't control it. I just have to bear down for this season of time. And once this season is over, then I can get back to normal. But the problem is another season comes, right? It's hurricane season all the time.
Sure.
When you're running a business and life. So it can feel like it's happening to you, when in reality, we're the ones who are actually perpetuating it and creating it. The fires will always be there. And so that is huge. To walk away with, like, knowing that nothing is so urgent today that it needs my attention within the next like hour or two. No one's going to die. If it's a problem at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, if it's a problem at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because you get an email from a client or an email from somebody on your team, it'll still be a problem at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And if it's no longer a problem from 4 p.m. today to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, it was never a problem to begin with, right? It solved itself. Half the time those problems solve themselves. I think that's really powerful. So, and, if you're listening to that, like, certainly having a time where you're deciding to shut it off and recognizing that even though work is never complete, you can be finished for today.
The hamster wheel of just never being able to get off of it was really weighing on me big time before. 6 months ago, I should have been so excited about a new position and all that was going to bring. But yet I had this anxiety of, wow, my mid 40s, this is my life. It's just over and over and over again, and really no excitement about working, no excitement about the evening with my family because I'm thinking about work the next day. I was dreaming about work. I then doing it all over with no real true satisfaction at the end of each day. That's what's really changed, I think, for me, is that focusing on what my goal is and really what the purpose of that day is, remembering that the emails and the emergencies aren't, we're not, we're not curing diseases here. I needed to really put that into perspective and not just fly off the handle at anything that came in my way. I feel like I'm in control now. I feel like that's definitely helped me really just look at what the purpose is, and also work with purpose and work with a satisfaction at the end of the day, which is something I haven't had in a long time.
So for you, like some of those keys, some of those key insights and lessons learned, like went back to, and habits went back to choosing to say, okay, work is never done, but it's complete for the day.
Right.
And shutting that off and giving yourself the space and the freedom to recognize that whatever's happening in my inbox right now, whatever's happening in my cell phone text messages right now, those things will still be there tomorrow. And my job is not to solve them right now.
It's been pretty amazing to me that I've even, where I would have never found time, I don't have time for that, I don't have time for this. I'm even thinking about, I put my name in for volunteering at our church, and in the evenings, certain evenings where, I don't know, I guess in my mind, I didn't have time for that because I was still checking email at 8 o'clock, or, going from work to being a mom and back to work and cooking and then looking at my email. It was chaotic and extremely not productive, but that's been a big help to really just step away at the end of the day and then remember that it's okay if all of the administrative things aren't finished today. I gave my best. I showed up. I was present for my people, and that's enough. Like, I'm enough, and that's enough for me to put that away until tomorrow. So that's been very, very helpful.
Yeah, I'm enough. And that was part of it. I think part of it for you was, and I can relate to it. Like, there's a piece where when we ourselves feel like that part of what we need to do each day is to prove through our actions and prove through our results that we are enough, right? There's that imposter syndrome sometimes as an entrepreneur or as a leader. And so we feel like, well, whatever I did today is not enough. I need to make sure I prove that I'm worthy of this position. I'm worthy of that. That will drive you into spending time in the evenings and weekends to working more, because what you did today wasn't enough. And because it wasn't enough, then you're not enough.
Right.
Whereas you're choosing to say, hey, what I did today was enough, and I am enough, and I don't need my job to validate or to serve as evidence that I'm enough. Like, I'm enough because I am, because that's who the Lord says I am. So having that time set aside, even if it's for a few minutes, where you're like, okay, what I did today was enough, and I don't need to bring any of this back into my family life. How do I want to show up as a father, as a husband, as a wife, as a mother? How do I want to show up to the people in my life that I care about most? What kind of experience of me do I want them to have over the course of the evening? And how do I want this evening to go? Now, how do I want the evening to go, especially when you have little kids, it's like, it's not about having it go perfect, everyone's perfect and behaving and not fighting and not screaming. It's, how do I want to show up, right? Last couple of quick questions, like, what has been, so those are some of the things that you've done. Talk to us about what is life like now? Like, what have been the results, the impact of those changes in your work? What have been the results and the impact of those changes in your family life?
It has just been so eye-opening for me to be able to put my work here, close it off, and be a mom. And I've even seen, my son Christian has been more engaged with me lately than probably ever before. And he's a teenager, preteen, so that's shocking. But I think it has a lot to do with me showing up for him, and he knows when you're not, kids know when you're not fully engaged. So that has changed tremendously. I feel so much more productive and calm when I'm at work. I also don't look to others for validation as much. I mean, it always creeps up. I mean, that's something that I'll probably have to fight forever. That's just something that I've probably fought since I was a childhood, wanting to do my best, but also looking for validation from others that it is my best. And I'm just having to look within myself to find that, and not find that through other people. So that has changed as well. Goodness, I feel like I'm a totally different person. And I will tell you, this is probably something you don't know, Jason, but in the process of this, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm less stressed. I've actually lost 15 pounds since the first of the year, which is crazy. I didn't even realize that myself. I've just been eating healthier. I've been taking care of myself more. I've been prioritizing myself, and because I know when I show up for my team, show up in my business, show up for my family, that those are things I need to show up for, and I don't need to, it doesn't need to be just all lumped together in one lump sum. So that's been just incredible for me to look at my life and look at my life now it's exciting again. And it wasn't for so long.
That's awesome. And so much of this coming from a few key things.
Yeah.
Choosing to start your day with intentionality, choosing to transition your day from work to home with intentionality, and embracing the idea that whatever was completed today was enough for today.
Right.
And if there's problems that need to be handled, I can handle them tomorrow. And I don't need to work for my validation. I don't need to work to validate who I am. I already know who I am. My work is not a part of my identity. It's just something that I do to serve others. What advice would you give them if someone was, listening to that and they're like, I can totally relate to where you're at, Kaylie. Man, I'd love to make these changes in my life. Like, what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give them?
I found that, and I've read a good amount about people who are high achievers, and sometimes we have a hard time seeing ourselves the way that others see us. So my advice would be to get a good coach to help you see and uncover what you might not see. Sometimes solutions are right in front of your face, but it may take an outsider to really help you fully see them. And just putting those blocks in place, and getting an accountability partner, even if it's not a coach, to really help you with that, because it's not just something that you can say, well, I'm going to turn off work and I'm going to do that at this time, and I'm going to get up and walk the dog at this time. Those things are things that we need to constantly remind ourselves to do. So really, that would be the advice. I've just really enjoyed you being able to look at my business and my life in a different way. I think it's been eye-opening for me. And that's the advice that I would give to, and another piece of advice is you will be able to get off this hamster wheel. I know it doesn't feel like it. It can feel overwhelming at times, and really just debilitating at times, but there's hope that you can start enjoying your life again. I'm proof of that.
I'm so admire like what you've done and the impact that it's had, not just these last 6 months, like for your family and your work, but the residual impact it'll continue to have, for those you care about most, and for you.
I agree. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everything that you've done as well. It's been so helpful for me, and my family thanks you as well.
Well, it warms my heart. So thank you so much, and
Thanks,
enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you.
Thanks. Bye.